you said that you were sharing the non-religious case against porn. Mm-hmm. What is the non-religious case against porn?
Well, I think whenever we seek to condemn a particular action from a moral point of view, we often point to the consequences around that, Like, you shouldn't do that because this will happen.
Like, you shouldn't drive past the speed limit or drive drunk because you might kill somebody.
Yes. But I think there are certain moral actions that are not just wrong because of what they bring about. There are certain moral actions that are wrong because of what they are, right? So I don't think that gambling is wrong because of what it is, but I think that it could be wrong because of the effects that it brings about. I think that, like, racism or sexual abuse or pornography are wrong because they do bring about negative effects. But even if they didn't bring about negative effects, they would be wrong because of what they are. Like, they're irrational. And these are things I would call intrinsic evils, not just wrong because of the consequences, but wrong in and of themselves.
Is it possible for there to be an evil that's wrong in and of itself, but that has no evil consequences?
That's a great question. I haven't thought it through. I would suspect not. I would suspect that all evil actions have evil consequences, but not all actions that produce evil consequences are wrong in and of themselves.
So, for example, if there's an accidental evil consequence, but the action itself wasn't evil, that's what you're referring to.
Yeah, so whenever we consider a moral act, we think of the act itself, we think of the circumstances surrounding the act, and then we think of the intention of the actor. So if you and I were walking to a coffee shop and we saw a homeless person and I gave him money, but I gave him money because it was really important to me that you thought I was a great person. Well, the act itself would be the object of the act. Giving money to a homeless person isn't what's wrong, but my intention would sully that act such that I really kind of should repent of that in some way and recognize that that's not good. Okay. You think of a man who makes love to his wife. This is a beautiful thing, but if he does so at a time when it's medically dangerous, even though the act is good, the circumstances make it not good. That kind of thing. But then I think we can all recognize there are certain acts, forget the consequences. They're wrong because of what they are. So a lot of people will say that gambling is wrong, and they'll point to many of the consequences that people point to in pornography. So let's think of some of the things people say pornography is wrong for, right? They'll say, well, you should look at porn. Why shouldn't you look at porn? Well, because maybe it's addictive. Okay, well, if it's addictive, what if I can regulate my porn use to like once a year or once a month? Well, no, it's still wrong. Okay, well, why is it wrong? Well, because it leads to marital breakdown. Well, I'm not married. Oh, okay. Well, I mean, there are people in the industry who are underage. Well, okay, what if I see to it that the kind of pornography that I'm consuming doesn't involve these sorts of abuses? Okay, sure, but it's wrong because, you could waste a lot of money on it. There's all these consequences. But I think that pornography is wrong because of how it treats the human person and sex. So I think the human person is a good towards which the only adequate attitude is love. I think that when a person consumes pornography, they are acting in an anti-love way. So I think that love means to will the good of the other for their sake. And I think the opposite of love, therefore, in this sense, would be use. I don't will the good of the other for their sake. I will my good at your expense. And I just don't think you should ever treat people like that. Like, we've all had experiences where we were treated as objects in one way or another. And whenever that happens, in whatever capacity, it might not be sexual, it might be financial, something, you always feel like some kind of violence has been done to your nature. And I think that's because it has. So there's a sort of like phenomenological response that we have when people treat us merely as objects. I don't mean that we can't make use of each other, but that we know what it's like when people treat us merely as a means to an end. And I don't think we should treat people like that. I think that whenever one consumes pornography, that's taking place. And so I think there's a whole host of reasons why pornography is wrong, and that's just one of them.